Hello, and welcome to another World of UX podcast. This is your host, Darren Hood. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. A special welcome to those of you who are listening for the first time. Today, we're going to be very brief, probably going to be one of the shortest episodes you've ever seen on the podcast, but I just want to talk for a few minutes about the topic of UX in the age of misdirection. There's a lot of misdirection happening in UX today, and I've been talking about this for years and years, and I'm reminded of a post I had on LinkedIn recently where I was talking about how that I'd say a lot of things, I have said a lot of things that have been relatively loud. I used to just curate stuff and share stuff that I thought was important that would help people grow, and when I saw the discipline coming under attack, I shifted and I began to talk about the things that I saw that were starting to happen in UX that were not in our best interest. And so I've been pretty vocal since about 2011, 2012 or so. Been very, very vocal. One of the instances I talked about not too long ago was where I spoke at an event where I live in Metro Detroit, where I was talking about how that, actually it was funny because I knew that when they asked me to speak, I was already being subjected to gag orders and people didn't want me to talk about what I was talking about. And it's funny how people don't want me to talk about what I'm talking about, only to turn around later and complain about the very same thing that I warned them about. And do you have to believe me at face value? No, but you can go and investigate. There's nothing wrong with that. You can go and investigate it. You can go and look at what's being discussed. You can examine it. You can look in your own world at the evidence and then put it in the balances, evaluate it. That's what we do as UX people. We look at things and we look at data, we make decisions, we let that data inform us. And so these things are critical. But I said that UX was under siege in 2011. I was ignored and told to shut up. And then at that event, I've already been pretty loud for about 3 years when I spoke at this event. And to sort of have me there and acknowledge me, but at the same time, restrict me and keep me from saying too much in the event, they asked me to just present a David Letterman style top 10 list. And in this top 10 list, I talked about things that we learned about UX in 2013. I'll actually reshare this again in the not too distant future. It deserves revisiting. But number one on that list was the rise of the poser. And when I mentioned that the rise of the poser was the big thing that I had learned in 2013, there was approximately, I'd say somewhere between 100 to 150 people attending that event. And there was this uproarious laughter. I was laughed to scorn. People found it funny. People found it silly. People found it ridiculous. And they really sort of made a mockery of me on the spot. Well, that was in 2014, about February of 2014, when I gave that little mini talk, that little lightning talk, if you will. And now it's 2025. And this is part of what I'm going to talk about today, because the misdirection that began in about 2011 has now come full circle, and we're pretty much being overrun by misdirection. I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and I say a couple loosely. I'm going to give you some examples today of what I mean by misdirection and how it has come to redefine the discipline. It has come to reshape the discipline. It has reset us with regard to what our goals are. It has changed what UX really is in the minds of many, especially new people. Because the newer people coming in, they're coming in by, hordes of people are coming into the discipline today, and they're hearing these misdirected messages and thinking them to be accurate. So they set their goals, they set their trajectories based on the misdirection and the misinformation that's being served up. And a lot of people who know better, who know these things are not accurate, a lot of times say nothing. So the silence comes across as consent. So a lot of people have believed these things and operated in them, and now they become the norms, and they're not accurate. They're not true. And so now the discipline is being misrepresented in mass. A lot of people who are in charge of UX operations or are the ones who sign the check, give the approval for the UX departments to operate, don't really know what UX is. And they've become influenced by this same misdirection. And so now we're operating in a discipline today that is a shell of its former self, frankly. And some people go, there he goes again. I don't want to hear that. Well, it's happening. So you're going to have to deal with it, and you're going to have to figure out how to manage it. People for years, I keep saying things and they're happening, and people keep not wanting to listen, and they come face to face with these things, and now they have no plan. They have no ability to respond properly, and they become victims, and they get swallowed up by the same misdirection. I said we're going to be quick. Let's be quick. Let's just share some quick examples. Number one, hiring practices. Now, one of the things that's been happening with hiring practices today is that a lot of people who are younger in the discipline or newer to the discipline, they came in, and you constantly hear, we talked about it last week. What does it mean for somebody to give you a chance or to break into the discipline, things of that nature? What does it mean to stand out? Specifically is what I talked about in last week's episode. And a lot of people coming in, and the newer people, that's where their mind is. And so their mind is there, and they're concerned that the UX market does not favor them. And these people got louder and louder and louder. And then a lot of people who were in power say, you know what? We need to give these people a chance. And so what happened was, because all these people were yelling and screaming about the fact that nobody was giving them a chance, and they wanted to break in, and then a few people started saying, we need to give them a chance, not realizing that giving somebody a chance became the predominant way to run a UX operation. So the people that were giving the chances or being given the chance that was happening. That number was it was expanding dramatically to the point where tons of people who were getting UX jobs were the people who were being given a chance, but the people who labored to earn a chance were being stripped of the opportunities that we labored for. So that's one point. The second point that happened was these people were concerned about the market not giving them a chance, the market not treating them fairly, but they had no concern about the fact that the market, by the way that they were shifting and focusing, were becoming dysfunctional in the way that they were operating. So to have this mindset that, hey, give me a chance, the market doesn't favor me, and then those numbers growing and growing and growing, but those same people not being concerned about the dysfunction that was being set loose in the discipline, that's an imbalance, isn't it? Welcoming dysfunction made the discipline dysfunctional. A lot of what you see as UX today, a lot of the hiring, companies are not hiring UX people. Doesn't matter what the job posting says. I am not in the market for a role, basically speaking, but I still keep my eye on the market. And a lot of what I see in people being hired, celebrating their new roles on LinkedIn, a lot of the job postings that I see, it all really says, it really shares a very frightening tale, because it shows that the people who are getting the jobs, and we will not be remiss to mention, I'm going to make sure I say that a lot of people are being promoted well before they have earned it. And that has reshaped the trajectory or the timeline by which people are supposed to advance in the discipline. It used to be that, and I say this a lot, it used to be that people didn't get a senior position in UX. You had to be working in UX for at least 10 years to even remotely be considered for a senior position. People are getting senior positions now in a year, 2 years, 3 years. You used to have to work in UX for 12 to 15 years to get a lead or a principal role. People are getting lead roles now after 2 years and 3 years. People are getting manager and director roles. I'm seeing job postings for manager and director roles in UX and they only require a year of experience. Something is terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. But all this started with, hey, somebody please give us a chance. And somebody said, you know what? These people they deserve a chance. And so, but that became a norm. And so that became a mode of misdirection. It became something that was normalized and it's something that never should have happened. And now we're paying the price because people who get promoted too fast, they can't bring the value that matches the value prop of the identity associated with their roles, their positions, and you name it, all the different little elements. That's not good. It's not good for the discipline. It's not good for the people who get the roles. It's not good for the people who promote folks to get into the roles. It's really sad and interesting. And it's really, I talk about this sometime too, but I find it really strange how that when you have earned it, when you do have the expertise, when you have served as a prudent commodity, a lot of those same people, they work harder to make people like me look bad than they do to be sound in their own practice. And they will go out of their way to try to create these scenarios. It's like I was binge watching an old show recently, and I was watching Gotham and looking at how this one character went to try to frame the soon-to-be Commissioner Gordon to make him look like he was guilty of something. Framing somebody for something that they haven't done and for somebody that they are not is an age-old crime. And unfortunately, people do this in professional ranks, not just UX, but professional ranks. But in UX, we suffer more for it because we're so young, because there are so many people occupying space in UX that do not operate as caretakers of the discipline. And so when you remove people and when you try to really assassinate the character of people who do belong in those spaces, it deals a blow to that team. It deals a blow to the funding, the budgetary support that team has. It deals a blow to the discipline at large because eventually somebody will say, why do we need these UX people? Because the people who occupy those more senior roles cannot operate as a senior. And then eventually they're not going to bring value. So I hope you enjoyed your check because it's going to go away. At some point in time, one of those smart C-suite people is going to realize what's happening. And I have seen and have heard about entire UX departments being eliminated just like that. And it was because people who were in charge, people who did have a say-so, the people who were being hired were not operating as caretakers of the discipline. They didn't manage the UX maturity. They didn't manage the seat that they did have at the table. They didn't help. They were not partnering with stakeholders and internal clients. They were just occupying space and celebrating a check instead of doing the work that was required of somebody in that role. So that all that misdirection when it comes to titles, misdirection as it pertains to what UX's value prop is, all those things are associated with hiring dysfunction, not a good thing. Second point I want to bring up, and I'm going to have a visual I want to share with you on this one. Take a look at this. For those of you who are only listening by way of audio, I'll read this so you can see it. I'm sharing a screenshot of something that I saw on Facebook, and somebody was offering a self-paced course in UX/UI design. Let's pause for the cause. That should be a sign that you should not engage. Anytime somebody is offering you an educational venue or solution in UX, and they say UX/UI, that lets you know that their UX maturity for the people behind it and for that organization is terrible. And so now their trajectory is going to become your trajectory. If you partake, I mean, if I offered you a moldy sandwich, would you eat it? If I offered you, thinking about the movie The Help, if I offered you some poop pie and put some whipped cream on top, would you eat it knowing that it was poop pie? People are partaking of things because they don't know. I get it. And there was a time that we all had to learn. There was the time, as a matter of fact, that a lot of us, we embraced something that we should not have, and then we learned better and we backed up. So I'm not saying this to condemn anybody, but I am saying what's happened. and trying to share something in hopes that people will become more scrutinous, will engage in more critical thinking. When an educational resource uses that combo acronym of UX/UI, the chances of them helping you learn what you need to learn is really not high. And the chances of them infecting you with something that you're later going to have to unlearn is extremely high. And how many customers are going to be detrimentally impacted while you're engaging and trying to implement some of the things you learn from these improper educational sources? So this is misdirection. When they know folks want to learn about UX. So a lot of people are offering solutions to help you learn, but if what they present to you is not viable from an educational perspective, you're being misdirected. You're being led astray. You're being sent in a way, in a direction, in a bent, on a bent that you should not. This is a thing to avoid. And look at this. Let's look at it a little further. 3 modules, 34 lessons, 110 tasks. Now, number one, what in the world does that mean if somebody's learning? Nothing. This is supposed to be a value prop that they're sharing there. That's supposed to be a reason to, oh man, they have 34 lessons. So if those 34 lessons are poop pie with whipped cream on top, if they're moldy sandwiches, is it where it could be 1,000 lessons and it could be free? It doesn't matter because there's going to be some misdirection. 80% practice. Really? Okay. Affordable. Okay. It's going to cost you something. You see that. Real world projects. So learn without quitting your job. Okay. A lot of people offer that. But of those 34 lessons, this is what I wanted to get to. This is really hilarious to me. It's funny, but not funny. 20 of the lessons are about Figma. Okay, so 34 lessons, and just over half of them are about Figma. Reminder, Figma is not UX. It's technically not even a UX tool anymore. It started out being a UX tool. Figma's not a UX tool anymore, folks, but they're going to help you to learn Figma. And somebody's going to say, "What? But Darren, there's a lot of job postings and they say you got to know Figma." Yeah, because a lot of them don't know what UX is. So you're going to see. Don't allow a job posting. That's misdirection. Don't allow a job posting to shape your understanding of what UX is. A lot of companies have no idea. And you're going to be right there with them and you're not going to have any idea. And a lot of people don't know what UX is. They have lead titles. They have senior titles. They have all types of titles all over the landscape of titles. But the title doesn't mean that that's who you are. That's the title that the company that hired you gave you. That doesn't mean who you are. Just for you, anybody can go and get a business card made. It doesn't mean that you are what your business card says. It's the same thing. But do you see that? Isn't that a red flag? More than half of the lessons are about Figma. A Figma deep dive. Research in UX, 8 lessons. Well, but if you're going to do UX research, but you don't understand UX, how viable is that research going to be? Not very much. Mobile app design, 5 lessons. Still nothing about the foundations and the fundamentals of UX, though, folks. Not much, because if you learn about UX research, but you don't know UX fundamentals, then you are spitballing. You are spitballing, for the record. Creative web. What? What is that? Hot AI tools for UI. 2 lessons. This is hype. It's all hype. It's all, even the people who are behind it may not even know. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure they don't know. People are not out there saying, you know what, let me get out there and deceive some people. We can get rich and deceive some people. Nobody's really saying that. But just because somebody doesn't know what they're doing doesn't mean that you have to be the victim. And I'm telling you, not just this, I just happened to see this again on Facebook. And so I thought I'd use it in this episode. But there's a whole lot of, I could show you a whole host of educational sources that are doing these same things. Whether they say UX/UI or not, what people are presenting and trying to sell folks with regard to UX, it's not what we're supposed to be partaking of today, folks. So education, a lot of universities think that they're competing with boot camps. They're not. A lot of enrollment is down in a lot of UX programs, a lot of just academia period, not just UX program, but a lot of academia period. And I taught at a university where I was teaching the design and taught the information architecture course, and a lot of people weren't signing up for it, but they'll sign up for all the hype-based courses. And then they want to get a job in UX, and then they want to do UX work, not knowing, well, you haven't learned, and I'm not picking on any school. This is happening all over the place, folks. People are not learning the fundamentals, so they're not being prepared to do the work. Misdirection. And unfortunately, misdirection through education. And speaking of UX, UI, I'm going to bring that up again one more time, just to serve as something that we can use as a reference point here. That is misdirection in and of itself, folks. That UX, we didn't start calling UX that, even though Don Norman had UX in his title at Apple in the mid-90s or so, it didn't become common to refer to this discipline as UX or user experience until sometime between 2008 and 2010. That's when it became common. And many people understood at the time that UX was basically a moniker, and it was just something that was used to refer to everything we did. There were no specializations in UX prior to 2011, 2012. If you were working in UX at that time or before that time, you did design, you did research, you did strategy, you did information architecture. You might do some UI design, you might not. But we didn't do visual design a lot. We were the people who did the bones, the skeleton. We did the blueprints. We did the wireframes, is what they're known as, but that's the equivalent thereof. That's what we did. And other people were usually responsible for the visual design. When the gold rush, what we call the gold rush, started happening between 2011 and 2015, where people started running to get into UX because they heard about how much money you could make. They thought that the work was easy. And a lot of people thought that they could take their visual design careers that they had. A lot of people thought they could take their career as a developer. They thought that they could take other things they were doing and then parlay that into a UX role. Now, in general, can that be done? Yes. But if a person doesn't transition and tries to come into UX, but still really from a functional perspective are still where they came from, then you just have a UX job, but you're not really a UX professional. I don't care who paid you. I don't care who hired you or whoever did it. If you're still a UI designer, then you're still a UI designer. If you're still a developer and that's predominantly what you do, then you are a developer. If you're a content strategist, then you're still a content strategist. And so all of the misdirection became the norm. So as people started to, the gold rush started, the vast majority of the people that were starting to rush and come into UX were graphic design. And so people did not know how to explain what UX was. And somewhere around the first time I ever saw UX UI was in 2013. That's the first time I ever saw anybody use that combo acronym. And ironically, I had the title. And when I was given the title, I didn't think anything of it. You can go look at my LinkedIn profile. You can see where I had that title because it's still there. I left it there because that's the title that they gave me. I didn't think anything of it. And I just kept doing the same exact work that I always did, the same exact work that I did years before that, and the same exact work that I do today. But what I started to notice was that people who didn't know how to explain UX and people who were spending most of their time on UI design, those people thought that UX/UI was by using that was a way to help people understand who we are. Simply isn't the case, folks. Simply is not the case. And so when people hear UX/UI, it actually confuses people. It makes people think that UX and UI are interchangeable when UX is talking about up to 250 methods, methodologies, techniques, and deliverables, all under a big umbrella, of which UI is one of them. And a UX person may or may not be responsible for designing a user interface. They may not. They may not. Again, specializations came along later, but there were people who were dedicated to designing UIs at one time, and they worked with the UX people Now, a lot of times they want all that. Many times a product designer, that's all they are, is a glorified graphic designer. But they want all that to reside under one person. Technically, when a person does that, they're not going to be able to thrive. And if you show me a real UX person and take somebody who's a UX/UI person and put them side by side, the real UX person, and let me back up and ask them to do real UX work, the UX person is going to blow the UX/UI person out of the water because they don't know. They don't know how to do strategy. They don't know how to build relationships. See, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on when doing UX work that has nothing to do with doing actual designs. It's about the science. And graphic designers are not scientists, and UX designers and architects are. We are scientists. And when you remove the science from the work, you no longer get that $10 for every dollar that you spend. So these things are critical. When that UX/UI thing, it kept building steam, and it was a misdirect. It actually caused people to look in an area where they should not. It caused people to embrace something that they should not. It caused people to place value on something that, is it valuable? Yes. We can't get anywhere without the user interface, but it requires all that other work. Thinking about Jesse James Garrett and the 5 planes, 4 of the planes take place before you even get to the visual design, to the presentation layer. Let you know that UX work is at least 80% of what happens. All the big stuff happens on 4 planes, and then the visual design happens on 1 plane, and it doesn't even take up the 20%. It's safe to say that that's 10% of the work. So we need to understand there's a lot of misdirection that's happening in UX. And if there's any hope for this discipline to get back on track, people are going to have to embrace this stuff that I talk about all the time that people think they can do without, that I've started to notice some people saying it. And I thank God people don't listen to me in general. I'm doing this labor of love. People don't listen to me. Other people are starting to say some of the things that I've been saying for a long time. And I've seen 3, 4, 5, 600 people. Okay, at least somebody gets it. I'm not going to get credit for what I've done, for what I've shared, but I hope people, at least if the discipline turns around, I will sit over in my little corner and I'll rejoice because I'll be happy to see the discipline get back on track. I say this is not about me, and people still don't believe me. This isn't about me. This is about hoping that this discipline becomes restored and people start operating with integrity, with ethics, and with genuineness of purpose instead of all these other things that people are doing. So we're going to wrap up there, folks. But this is UX in the age of misdirection. I thought this was going to be the shortest show ever. Didn't happen. I was going to try, but it didn't happen. But I hope you got something out of this. I hope that I'm making you think today. And I hope you are interested in pure UX, not the cult of UX that we're being subjected to these days. So, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Until next time, this is Darren Hood, the host of The World of UX, wishing everyone all the best. And until then, happy UXing, everybody.